Hi everyone, Kelly Mahler, occupational therapist, and I want to talk about something maybe a little vulnerable for me as an occupational therapist, especially as one that is very interoception informed. If you know my work, interoception is really all about that sense that helps us understand how our body feels. I spend a lot of time helping my clients to understand their bodies, being able to notice body signals, make meaning of those body signals, and find ways that they can regulate those body signals or help their bodies feel more comfortable. So regulation has always been central to my work. But here's like the vulnerable epiphany I wanted to share with you. Even though I absolutely think about the environment all the time and the impact on a person's body, I was not thinking about it in a comprehensive enough way. I was thinking about pieces here and there, like, the sensory impact or the sensory environment's impact or predictability or relationships in the environment, but not in a deep, systematic way that's actually needed for supporting and thriving and helping a person to experience reduced distress. So once I kind of started thinking about that comprehensive nature of the environment, something else also clicked. And this is like the even more vulnerable part, that I realized that if I don't comprehensively consider the environment, my regulation supports accidentally become training for endurance. And what I mean by that, like, it's really helping my clients to endure these distressing environments, endure sensory overwhelm, endure unsafe demands, endure unpredictable places and systems, endure an entire huge system around a person that isn't designed for their body at all. And so when that happens, the burden quietly shifts onto the client. They're the ones that have to do all the hard work regulating their body in these environments that are nearly impossible to regulate within. They're the ones that have to try their best to regulate well enough to quote unquote survive in these environments. And I think the biggest part of it is like sometimes or many times my clients are doing an incredible job at regulating, and it's still very, very hard. And instead of the environment getting questioned, many times they start to internalize, like, it's my fault that I can't regulate, or I'm the one that's broken, or I'm not good enough at regulating. And I don't want to contribute to that, because sometimes, or let me just say all the time, if that's fair enough to say, it's not the person that's failing, it's the environment. And that's why David Gray Hammond and I are designing an entire model on what we consider to be the environment. It's an entire deep framework, this ecosystemic lens of all the different environments that is surrounding a person. It's way bigger than just the sensory environment. In fact, it contains three different levels. So level one is the inner environment, and so that's really about the person's body and mind. Do they have a lot of unmet medical or pain needs? Do they have they been able to sleep well? Do they have a lot of distress showing up in their bodies? There's so many internal factors to consider. And then we move to level two, which is the environment right outside of the body. So those are the immediate environments. So this does include things like the sensory environment, but also the predictability and cognitive demands that are present in the environment, the relationships that are in the environment. Are they supportive? Are people feeling understood and validated? And there's so many factors in that immediate environment to consider. And then level three is even more outside of that person, but still equally as impactful. That's like the systems around the person. So the policies, the culture, the accessibility, the power dynamics that are surrounding that person, and how that influences their level of distress. And I think what's really important to note is that distress often shows up in level one, in the body mind, but it's often usually due to the environments in level two and level three that are creating that distress, right? So yes, interoception matters, knowing about the body and what's going on, but so do those level two and level three environments. And so we really need to comprehensively consider this framework. And that just brings me back to interoception really quick, because how do we figure out what in the environment is creating the distress? I think that's a really valid question. And what I love to do, and one of the tools that I love using, is the interoception curriculum. And that really can provide us with an environmental compass many times. I love like how the interoception curriculum is really helping so many of you out there to understand your own felt experience, to understand your clients' felt experiences, really from the inside out. We're getting super curious. And when someone can start to notice their body signals more clearly, their body becomes feedback. Their body becomes an information, a guide to the environments around that person. And that really matters, because when we're trying to reduce distress, the person's body really can tell us a lot of things that maybe we might not be able to get to through observation alone. Observation can be really important, but whenever we can get insight from a person's body, that is clearly the winner. So really, like, how do we do this? Let's talk about 3 steps. So step 1 is like establishing a baseline of comfort versus discomfort. And I love using focus area experiments from the interoception curriculum. And that really are those hands-on experiments that we offer to help a person to have practice noticing their body signals in really playful ways, and really figuring out this baseline of what experiments make the body feel comfortable, what experiments make the body feel uncomfortable, how does a person come to express and share and describe that internal comfort and discomfort. That's really where the focus area experiments can be incredibly powerful. They're playful, they're hands-on, they're really designed to bring sensation to a specific body area so that person can get that practice noticing and describing body signals. At this stage, we're not really doing much to the environment, we're gathering information. And then we move on to step 2, where through this focus area experiment, we start to build shared language and a relationship of belief. The curriculum like really builds something very deep, more than just the experiments themselves. It really helps us to develop a shared language and a collaborative process with our clients. Like one that is rooted in, like, I believe anything you tell me. Your body signals matter. We'll be curious about you together. That's really so important. And the key here is that the expressions don't even have to be verbal. Our clients can tell us a lot about what their body is experiencing in the experiments through mouth words, but also through lots of other ways, like gestures and body movements and different forms of communication. And when we make space for all of this curiosity, all of this belief and validation, we can learn so much. And then step number 3 is really continuing those focus area experiments, but now we can bring in the environment. So how do we offer focus area experiments that are more environmental adaptations, right? So we need to think about that comprehensive framework of the environments that David and I are working on, and really starting to go deeply into each environment, considering what about this particular environment creates discomfort in your body, and what adaptations can we try in an experimental way to see if it affects the way your body feels. So we're really trying to use adaptations and ask, like, oh, how did that feel in your body? Was it more comfortable? Was it less comfortable? Did you feel safer? Did you feel less effort? Did you feel like you had more ability to participate? There's so many different questions we can ask on whatever age or level a person is at. And we can start to really find those strategies that are individual to each person on how we can modify all the various environments around them to promote as much regulation and reduced distress within their body. So the goal is to reduce distress by improving the fit between the body and the environment and outside of the body. So if all of this is resonating with you, if you're ready to stop putting the full burden on a person and start assessing the distress as an environment and body story, David and I are going very deep in our upcoming course into all of this, including how we can consider all of these different layers that shape distress, how can we assess a variety of environments, and then we love to get practical. If you've ever taken one of our courses, we love lots of practical strategies on how we can start to make these ethical shifts in the environment surrounding each person so that they can thrive. So until next time.